like all of nature, I would say that this is very beautiful plant. For me personally, this is my yin to my yang, yes? I don't know if you can see how much. You might need to come a little closer to get a look at this because it's quite a spectacular thing that's going on here. Each one of these are filled with six. And if we go here, here's another. Here's another. Here's another. Here's another. Here's another. Yeah? Okay, keep on going for quite a while. And here's another. This is what they open out to. Not fully there yet, but it's getting there. Absolutely beautiful plant this is. Much like all nature, but I mean there is many, many, many flowers rising up. Look here, there's more here. Look at these. Now, as far as I understand, this plant went extinct in 1818, something like that, 1818. Quite a while ago. It also often gets mistaken for another type of species of plant that is well thriving in the world. But this one, as far as I can understand, this is quite a rare one. Here, look, there's another one here, look. And here. Do you see how many flower heads she's producing?
Yeah.
This is definitely a female. As much as I understand, it's a female, I think. I'm still, this is cloning itself like you wouldn't believe. This is perhaps the back of it. The soil composition. Look at this. So this is a mixture of many things. Inside rocks, bits of coffee ground, leaf matter. And yeah, whenever she drops her leaves, such as these ones, or her flowers when they finish up, I make a salad. I snip it all down or blend it all up into a pulp and put it in. She very rarely needs any watering, to be fair, because it's mainly all of her old leaf matter. Now, to really get her going is to grind up rock and find certain types of rocks that, I will do another video at a later date and I'll show you the type of rock, the insides of rock. It actually looks more like, I don't know, foreign planet material is the only way I can explain it, to be honest. So, pretty good, pretty good. Very rarely needs watering, this one, and she's not exactly leaking tons of moisture. And there's an experiment that you can do to test how much moisture she releases. And it would be to encase it into a transparent bag, seal it up from top to the bottom, and the amount of moisture that you get out of there gives you an indication of how much moisture she is losing. Now, this plant has been awoken. When we say awoken, it means that naturally in the environment, she will hibernate and then she will produce for a part of the year and then shut down. Part of the year, then shut down. Part of the year, then shut down. So she's hibernating, but plants don't truly hibernate the way we understand it because during the winter they seem to work on their roots, especially oak trees. I had some acorns and I planted these in the summer. They didn't really do anything, to be honest. And then in the winter they started with their roots started to come. And then they popped out as what you would understand as an oak tree. But during the winter, and when you put them in transparent containers, you get to understand that their roots during the winter, although all the leaves are gone and you've just left with a barky twig, if you want to call it that in the beginning, the roots begin to go on a growing spree. They really work on their roots. So it seems that trees they don't favor which way round they operate. So it kind of seems to me that during the winter, they turn themselves upside down. And they begin to grow the opposite way. And then during the summer, they turn up and they grow leaves. The branches have a go at growing in that growing season. And then times that's over, they then turn back up the other way and then begin to grow further. So trees, to me, are duality.
Yeah.
Yes, they are happening in two areas, it almost seems to me. This duality is the type of thing. Now, with nature, we are sending out a very clear message to nature when we cut down, deforest, and we remove lots of stuff. We're telling it that we don't care. We're selfish beings, we don't care about you. But the problem is with nature, it's not a problem, it's a problem with humans when we got to be able to move our horizon of thinking and thought. If she's in the natural environment, she hibernates.
Yeah.
If humans were in a natural environment and a natural state and not aware of their awareness, you would too be hibernating when the weather becomes rough. But there is a problem and a price to pay when we wake up during the winter and don't shut down. And yet we see all of the foliage shut down and we're like, oh, it's winter. It's dangerous. It's very, very dangerous, especially when we're all consuming. We are all consuming beings. And if nature, to me, and my belief, is that nature has been cradling us, but we just don't see it. And the amount that we push back, we cut down, we cut down, we cut down. Have you not noticed her lack of retaliation?
Yeah.
Nature is not retaliating.
Yeah.
So it could retaliate in such a way that it could then start becoming toxic if it wanted to. I'm pretty sure that it's fully aware it knows how to do this. And yet it doesn't. It still selflessly gives to us. Now, to me, nature is aware. It's aware of a lot of things.
Yeah.
When we look at the awareness of this is so beautiful, yet so delicate.
Yes, it
But
is.
to a bumblebee, this is appealing.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go and rub and pollinate into this. I'm going to go to the next one and collect this, and I'm going to collect this. That is fully aware of insects,
Yeah.
whatever way you look at it. Some plants are fully aware that humans are around, and perhaps when reaching and grabbing their berries, she very gently says, I want to give you my berries, but I don't want you to break me in the process. I'm going to start to grow some thorns just to be a little reminder to you. Nothing major, but ouch. Oh, that hurt. Oh, I'm going to now, what do when you go to collect blackberries or anything else like that? We've got thorns in it.
Yeah.
You then become very delicate and you respect the plant, although you get its fruit. It's not saying, don't get my fruit. Because if it is, it would do it in a different way. It would shut down the fruit production and just go on to making seed. It doesn't need the flesh. At the end of the day, that's a byproduct. I want you to be delicate with me. Don't tread on me. Then when you get a thorn in you, ouch. Now, you're going to do it a bit more carefully. You carefully pick. You carefully pick, but you are very respectful to the plant. Why? Because it's going to hurt a little bit. It's not going to stop you fully. If it wanted to stop you, it knows to make the berry poisonous.
Yeah.
It could do this very easily. I'm pretty sure that it's one of the best alchemists on the planet, if we call it that. Alchemist.
Yeah.
Understands chemicals and the way to make certain chemicals in order to get a result, especially colour.
Yeah.
And the way its colour ratio is, how its ability to do that is quite amazing, I think. So, very green.
Yeah.
This serves a purpose. But I think that when we are disrespectful and we cut it all down and we remove it, I think it's very aware of us. It's very aware of the nutrition that we have. Animals rely on this.
Yeah.
If we were to travel space, any beings that traveled space, and we would begin to cut all down all of this forest and trees and plants and bushes and shrubs, I think that when we come to a stage where we have none of this left, perhaps the seeds no longer grow, or if it does, it's very challenging.
Yeah.
Perhaps they need this. Seeds may be able to be like little time capsules for a while, but perhaps they need this level of evolution in order for them to keep going, keep going, keep going. Because although we've got seeds from a time of when the sun is burning in its composition that it's at now and at its stage now, if we take some seeds when that composition slightly changes and we go to grow it, from when it was at this stage, here from when the sun was, but now the sun's reached this stage and we go to bury it, those seeds will not grow. We would have to give it the same light that it experienced back then, and then we would have to help it evolve to that stage now. If nature's up and about now, it's moving and evolving with the change of light, the sun, the composition, the different things. And slowly but surely, I think that it should be able to adapt to an ever-changing sun. Our sun is changing. Our planet is changing. The weather is changing. You can't adapt when you're shut down as a seed. You can only adapt bit by bit by bit by bit by bit by bit by bit. You've got to adapt with it. We cut it all down. We totally disrespect it, actually. And its lack of retaliation just goes to show you how peaceful other life forms really are. We look at a lion hunting for whatever reason. We don't know enough to know whether they were vegetarian or spiders. We don't know. Perhaps they use their webs to climb up on plants and eat the berries, much like we do. But then extinction came from certain things, or shutdown happened. And then it forced us to evolve to eat meat in order to stay alive. During an ice age, during hard times, perhaps it had to adapt in this way. And then when it all opened back up again, the ice melts and different things, and this abundance starts to come back slowly but surely, it perhaps got stuck in this eating meat. You can push life beyond its limits, and I think that it might do things that might go away from its original mapping. We don't know enough to say that humans have always eaten meat. It's just a good guess. The vitamin C production in humans as well. That's very interesting, that we used to produce vitamin C. So to say that we eat meat from day dot, could we have got protein in a different way, much like our bodies used to make vitamin C?
Yeah.
But because we started eating meat, it shut down a receptor. That protein is no longer being created in us, so now we have to feast off of it. Because we told ourselves that, well, we're eating a lot of this stuff anyway, and we evolved in this manner. Not saying that it can't go forwards, it can't go backwards, if you say so. Okay, if Darwin says so, then I guess it must be true. So, along with this, and we shut down nature, we cut it down, we do all of this, we are telling it something very not great. And also, I think we could be, how do we not know? Nature is aware. It seems to be aware of an awful lot. It seems to be aware of the wind. It seems to be aware of insects. It seems to be aware that things like to eat stuff. We don't know whether nature has been evolved to grow flesh. So when it traps its seeds around a fleshy, uses you to walk away from the tree whilst you're eating this, and maybe you'll throw away the core further away from the tree. Okay, with that, it learnt that you will move the plant away from the tree.
Yeah.
Because if you had lots of trees growing, they're all going to dominate each other, and it probably doesn't want that. So it goes this way, and perhaps it has to go through your digestive system unchewed, let's say, the seed. Not chewed, travel through your digestive system, and perhaps while it's through your body, that's when the seed begins to germinate properly. It turns on this activation. So when we see apple trees, most of them are not growing. Most of them are just no longer growing, not in the abundance that they used to. Perhaps it's because we got a bit more finicky and no longer eat the seed. They still do grow, but not in the abundance that they used to. Perhaps it's learning to adapt with this, and maybe it might need to start taking a choice of whether I drop these apples here and these trees are going to grow beside me and perhaps block out my light. So it might have to adapt that way. However, how do we not know we're not activating it? And therefore, you've got to ask yourself, how the hell did nature know that? How did it know that? How did it know to then make the fruit to your nutrition? And anyway, they'll say that, if you eat lots of fruit and stuff, you become healthier. Well, how is that? That you become super healthy if you eat this? How do you know that? I mean, how does nature know that? So if we were naturally meat eaters, wouldn't we become super healthy if we just ate meat? because of evolution's worth of doing that. But yet nature seems to know a better way than you eating meat. So if I find it very difficult to settle on that that's where we've just come from, meat eating. I find it very difficult to accept that. Like I said in my last video, and I still stand by it, nothing's truly vegan, nothing's truly meat eater. Shades of grey. Humans are the exception to the rule in that, where we perhaps won't eat certain parts and we won't eat this, we won't eat that, but when we look at animals, they do eat lots of roast dinners all the time, is what I call it. Some have more abundance of meat, some veg. Some have more veg and some meat. The yin, the yang. So I think it's very important that we wake up to this, that we stay awake, nature shuts down. If we were to take a calculation across the whole of the planet, how many people have house plants? That would be one question. Second is, are these plants in their natural environment open all the time like this? The answer would be no, because of different reasons. If some of these grow under a canopy of a forest, let's say, so just before the canopy opens, these come in, charge up, open out. Daffodils, for example, there's another one. Take a daffodil bulb and bring it indoors. It will stay open all year. It won't shut down. Okay, it will flower perhaps once a year. Sometimes it'll even do it twice a year. Sometimes it's periodic and a lot more than that. It just depends. But the question is, how long is a daffodil open for out in the wild, in nature? For a season. Then it shuts down. Now, usually these are found at the side of forests and different things. You get the snowdrops, bluebells, and I can't think of it, purple orchid. I was in this place, I was on the way to Norwich, where just before the canopy opens, you get lots of buds happening on the trees. It's all ready to happen. But you get all of these purple orchids just cover the forest floor. It looks like a sea of purple. I love that colour.
That's beautiful.
So reminiscent of something. Anyway, never mind that. So that's where I get gripped on this. And the whole forest is a sea of it. And the smell is just, you'll never forget that in a hurry. And then the canopy starts to open. By that time, they're flowered. Bees have pollinated. Insects have come along. You've had a feast. Certain things eat them, certain things don't. And then it shrivels down. The leaves die off. And then summer hits and the canopy's fully open and these plants are no longer there. Next year, you have to wait a full year before you'll see that beautiful sight again. But you're spoiled because now you got another canopy opening and more is happening and the forest is waking up and the animals are coming out. So when we take this as a calculation of how many people would take those purple orchids, take those plants in, although you don't throw away and disregard the plant because it's not flowering all the time. And to look at that green and think, well, it's just leaf. It's more than just leaf. You don't discard the plant because it's not flowering. The thing is, how much oxygen is this making?
It's a big leaf.
So if it was in nature, how much oxygen would it be making per season? So you look at that and you would say the purple orchid that opens for a period of time, up to a month. Some bit longer depending on when the trees open up. It's all about that, really. Thing is, how do they know? Again, probably light and different things like that. Probably gets the indication from there. But that is going to be producing X amount of oxygen for a month and then no more oxygen. Now, let's say if I took those purple orchids and I made a field of them under the ground. I gave them light that they enjoyed and I gave them in soil that they loved. Number one, I'm going to be telling nature something. We really respect you. We appreciate you. We see you for what you are. Nature says, hey, you fingers, come here. Hey, thinkers and fingers, come here. Dig me up. When you leave the planet, take me with you. In fact, maybe I should make it so that you have to take me with you. Well, why would we want to take you with me? Well, one, I alleviate your symptoms of depression. This plant is my antidepressant. It's not just this plant, it's any plant, but mainly this plant. When I don't see it in nature, a lot of greenery and it all opening out, it makes me feel quite sad. Like, the trees are mystical, but they're not complete. Grow your leaves and be the air I need, be the air I breathe. Yes, so become complete. I like to see a tree complete. Although I don't disregard the tree because it's, its leaves are gone and all the rest of it, its leaves have gone and they've left. But I look at it for a different reason. It's almost like nature is trying to entice us all, if we actually pay attention. It's trying to entice us. If that alleviates depression, and it does for me, it helps to lower the symptoms for what I've got without me needing to take a pill. And if they say it's all in the mind anyway, placebo, this, that, and the other, sure, then this placebo is stronger. And this doesn't feel like a placebo to me. This seems like action and a reaction, which then triggers another reaction. So in this space, in this dwelling, I am existing and living 24/7 over the full year, but so is she.
Yeah.
Now, is she giving me oxygen as I am standing here talking, producing carbon? The conversations that get said, any type of talk, any type of video making near your plant. It is feeding off of you, and in this mutual exchange, I am feeding off of her. And I often wonder, is this a duality? Do plants feel depressed if people don't walk through the forest and view it?
Yeah.
Is this all one way and I'm just a human that is here and I am taking on when I walk through the forest and I'm feeling that, oh wow, this is just so beautiful. Is it getting it from me too? Wow, you humans are all different, aren't you? You might not see in the way that we see, but how do we not know that it isn't seeing nonetheless? But the fact is, if I were to take these purple orchids and yes, the top layer, the natural layer is sometimes it grows and it all comes in abundant and the garden looks good. But the rest of the year, almost like maybe I should just go and hibernate perhaps. Maybe I should just not view it until it comes again. Or could I go underground with my knowledge, being human, shared with everybody else's knowledge? And can I leave the top layer? Yes. But can I also include now a different layer? And can I make a Garden of Eden underneath my garden, underneath my farmer's fields? Can I make the capability to have a solar panel that grabs any light that's possible in order to make light under the ground? Can I include some warmth? Nature doesn't shut down due to lack of light. So some people believe that nature shuts it and drops its leaves due to lack of light. And I don't think that's true. Because if it was, there's even less light inside this. You'll say, oh, what about this light? I have tested this. I have given it no light from any of light sources from inside the house. And it's just survived on sunlight during mainly cloudy winters. And she didn't shut down. In fact, she still thrived. So I was like, so what is it that you are liking here? It's the warmth. It's the warmth. They want to be warm too. Yes, I dare say that without light, it's gonna stint its growth and it's gonna have more. There's more leaves certain winters than there are others, depending on how much cloud layer is about. So if I were to put these underneath my garden, whole area of a floristry, just not cutting flowers. Underneath my garden, can I make a Garden of Eden that all year round and in the winter, it's all there? Then, if I put a pipe in there, and this is just like a chimney, am I going to be able to vent oxygen from that that wouldn't be contributed into the environment? Because usually this is all shut down. But because of your thought, because of your fingers, you're able to keep the nature awake. Stop it from hibernating. And I often thought that it would degrade a plant. That there must be some sort of energy storage in a bulbed plants and non-bulbed plants alike. I thought that it might stint their growth, or they get a bit weak, or they'll grow a bit weedy because, they just need to have this death moment or this dormant moment. and then this growth moment, dormant moment. No, it's not true. Versus one of these that I have outside versus one that I have inside. The one that's outside, the bulb, is smaller. The ones I have inside, the bulb is massive. It is huge. The bulbs are completely different. The layers around it. And therefore, her evolution is faster than the one that's outside in the natural environment. So she is evolving faster. Whereas she would be evolving more slowly if she was outside, her clone. Mm-hmm. They were like for like when the experiment starts. And it seems to struggle more outside. And that indicates to me that she wants to come. If it evolved on this Earth, then Earth had longer summer than we do now. That would indicate that. And this wintry thing, we're still in it. We're still mainly dominated by winter. If everyone's houseplants were added up across the whole of the nation, and these plants would only produce this much oxygen per year, but they're open inside people's houses, how much oxygen are you contributing to the environment just by keeping them open all year? Not only that, are you benefiting from them? Well, yes. If it is responding from my carbon and I'm responding from its oxygen, what else are we responding to here? I see you as beautiful. What do you see me as? What do you see you as? It must be seeing you as something, because this so far it seems like the plants are yin and yang to humans. You feed me. Am I technically feeding you? If I take you to space with me, am I going to get depressed? Am I going to get low on oxygen? Is there going to be a beautiful exchange of carbon and oxygen go here? And then it led me to think, why do we not dig back the farmers' fields and install an area, one, like double glazing glass? Sand is quite abundant here. And if it ain't abundant here, we can get it from the moon, we can get it from Mars, we can bring back lots of sand. You know, the most worthless, I don't know, item that people just disregard. We're going to make a sand pit out of it. Even cats find it so, you know, they don't care about it. Here's my litter box now. Yeah. Right? So if we took the sand and we were to melt it down and convert it into glass, which we could use the sun to do before it came back, or we could go to a desert, good old magnifying glass, if glass making sand into glass, into more glass. Isn't that a very strange thing? Yeah. Or, at best, a laser with a magnifying glass. You ever tried that? It's interesting. Anyway, so we take a laser and a magnifying glass, or we use the sun and we concentrate the light for a series of lasers in a desert somewhere and make massive sheets of glass. Reinforce it, nice. And make it into double, triple, quadruple layers. And enough to withstand if we build a frame, a subframe around it. So the soil, when we put it back on, is not laying directly on the glass. And we use the glass just to make a type of insulation. All depends on what gas we put in between it. Underneath that farmer's field, we dig a hole out, we place these in, and then we cover it. So that we can still grow on the top of the land when the season's right. But underneath the ground, when winter comes knocking and you can't grow no more on top, maybe a few things you can go below. Solar panels at the edge of the field, all the way around. Yeah. How many is it going to take? Do you know how many solar panels you'll need to make a light work? Not many. Yeah, not many. And do you know what else is really wonderful about light? If we had the ones that generated all of that heat, these don't need much warmth. Humans need more warmth than these. Yeah. They just need a little bit more. They just don't want to feel minus. They don't want to start getting into the single figures. Double figures, these are happy with it. Minus, not so good. So if we had lights that were capable of producing heat, and we had enough solar panels that dotted around the outside of all farmers' fields, and the wires go in, you only need to connect these to a light. And what is more, connected to a light, if there's more sunlight, that light will get very bright. If there's less sunlight, it will be quite a dim light. Wow, isn't that just like the natural environment, but under the ground? So using the sun to trickle the light down to make an artificial light, which then, under this light, we utilize the ground underneath. Now, either we grow, doesn't matter, we could grow food, perhaps we don't need food. But what about if we started making a forest grow underneath there? Big enough to make the first artificial forest underneath a farmland. One where people can just walk down and just enjoy summer in the winter in their own nation. I mean, imagine that. That sounds so surreal, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Make some artificial breeze that's in there. Nice. Eventually, some of these projects underneath, because there's enough farmland everywhere, isn't there? What about if we were to seal them up?
Seal them up?
Yes, to try and get them space ready. Okay, glass is a very strange thing. It doesn't like too much pressure inside it. But yeah, if we put a valve on that and a type of balloon substance, it sits there inflated. When the pressure starts to build up in the glass from the heat, it pushes through a valve that then begins to inflate a balloon type structure. So that we don't explode the glass, but we start to inflate a balloon. And then, as it begins to become night, the temperature cools off, the pressure then drops, that balloon
goes back.
And that air is not vented out into the atmosphere. It is put back into the cylinder or the container that it's been contained underground. So that we work with this fluctuation like a lung to take that pressure build up. Because the worst thing you want to do in space, really, because this will be where it will want to go next, or the moon or Mars or anywhere else for that matter, in some sort of concealment. Mars, this is medicine. You want to suck in some of that carbon, convert the carbon into oxygen, and then start putting those into canisters. I think it would be dangerous to start terraforming Mars. Because Mars is losing its atmosphere. And it would be like converting that gas into oxygen just to lose it. But future generations can't go and collect all of that that's gone. Sounds like a nice idea, and it would be quite something for the individuals that are here now. Look at what we did. We achieved that. Wonderful. But it's not, it doesn't have longevity to it, does it? Longevity, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, if we put it into a canister, future generations would benefit far more from that. And slowly but surely begin to convert the gases into oxygen. What medicine? And we'll start doing the reverse of carbon on Mars, and we can convert the gases into oxygen. Plus, we get space ready. And we don't vent any of this gas. We blow it up into a balloon-type substance that is also encased with something else, just in case that pops. Or you do a balloon inside a balloon inside a balloon inside a balloon, like material. And this is going to be a whopping great big thing. So when the pressure builds up, the valve pumps it into the balloon, it inflates. When the pressure drops at night, that air goes back into the system. Because in space, when we're traveling to another star, we don't want to go, oh, the pressure's building out. Just discharge it into space. Oh, wait, the pressure's dropping. Well, we ain't got any more air on it. Well, what happened to the stuff? Well, we discharged it. We don't want to be doing that. That's a waste of gas. We want to try and get into a system that we can recycle. And what's more, if we did this on Earth, it becomes medicine because, you know, the carbon. If we grow a forest underneath a farmland that is there 24/7, open 24/7, how much wood do you think could be produced from that wouldn't be produced? Forests inside, underneath a farmland, would grow 24/7 and therefore would outgrow the ones that are seasonal. Would you feel bad about cutting that down and regrowing the forest again? Now you're growing wood. What can you do with the wood? Well, one, you can burn it. That's one. Two, you can make furniture from it. What else could you do with wood? There's always a lot you can do with wood. There's tons of things. You could fill out the inside of your crafts. You can carve it. Pass the time, boredom, different things like that. And you can also then begin to start converting the gases so that you're awake now during the winter, but you're also awake during the winter. Are we going to see the carbon gases start to increase over winter? And then we see them start to dip down and oxygen gases begin to grow and become abundant in the summer.
Yeah.
And then we lose it, and then we get the carbon. Because there's going to be a cut-off point eventually, isn't there, if we keep going this way?
Yeah.
There's going to be way too much carbon in the winter. Gee me, when it rains, it will fizz. So much so, right? When we'll have fizzy puddles. I think that's what we'll end up getting this way. We don't want to get to that stage. Why wait till we get there? Sure, we can go and carbon capture technology. Wonderful. That's great. Let's do that too. But this one seems like it will work more, and this one's going to take a bit of time. Plus, that one's expensive. This one is not. It's basically just add water technique. Off it goes. Keep the warmth, the light. If we've got it inside glazed, it should keep the heat, technically. Especially if we build it in some of this stuff. This stuff is very warm around the outside. And then it helps us to understand insulation. And if it's glass, the reason why I say glass, we can have squeegees come, because we're going to probably have a build-up of fungi and different things like that. We want to try and keep the fungus out if we possibly can, and then see whether the forest explodes exponentially. Not saying that we want to get rid of fungi. We'll have another one just for fungi, and we'll have another one just for, see what's going on, read the gases, see the exchanges. Then we could take it up a notch. Can we get some plankton, bacteria, and different stuff like that? Some farmland, we've got plankton experiments going on. Lots of plankton. Why do we want that? Well, let's see the gases. Is it producing oxygen? Is it some of these bacterium? Can we get one of those in one? Can we get plants in a forest in another? Why? Because we need a lot of wood. We use a lot of it. We could burn it, and there'd be this nice balance. Can we keep the gases so that they balance? Each and every... And what's more, could you then make a fireplace inside your house that connects to the chimney? You suck out the gas of the burning, and we put it into a cylinder, and the oxygen that comes from one of these underground farms connects to the fire. You would have to purchase the oxygen or reuse it, doesn't matter however it works, and then you fill up the carbon tank. So you'll be given an oxygen tank, and you're going to convert that when you burn to get warm, and then you're going to convert that into carbon. It doesn't vent into the atmosphere. When we take that carbon cylinder, can we take that, and then can we connect it to the forest that's growing underground? Then we push this carbon in. The trees that are under there, or the food that's growing, they will convert that into oxygen, and then we collect that oxygen and then send it back to the house fires. If we were to do that, think of the abundance of food. This gets you space ready. Why does it get you space ready? Well, we breathe in oxygen, do we not? And we breathe out carbon. We need one way of collecting one, and we need to store it, and we need another one that is giving another. And then what's more, we don't just want that, we want these system. Now, once we've built up with the carbon and we've utilized the oxygen, we want to be able to swap this in a reverse sequence to what we've just done. And we then want to feed something else, and then see if we can collect it, and then put it back into the module so that we can then breathe this gas. Think how long we could stay on a moon for.
Very long.
Think how long you could live on Mars. Think how long you could just live in space. You wouldn't need to go to Mars. Start building this around the planet. Houses, you say? Housing crisis? Is it? We've got a housing crisis. Not enough houses being built. What about now? There's no room. Are we going to be picking land, or are we going to be picking houses? But there's space, people. Space. How long could you stay on the International Space Station for with this process? And I'll be like, well, do you know how many plants that would take? Yeah. But it's space. Do you not want to build one the size of a football stadium?
Yeah, there's plenty of space because it's space.
And then let's make a series of stacks of these. Whoa, it would do something around the Earth. Well, then let's build it around the moon. Build it and send it off around the moon so it orbits the moon. And we just keep making. But what about micrometeorites? Well, sure, we're going to have to deal with those too. But what about micrometeorites when the sun starts to do something or the Earth starts to no longer be habitable? You want to find out how to deal with micrometeorites while we're traveling? Or you want to do it now on something?
Yeah.
Can we send robots that always stay on the outside? That quickly go when if there's an incident, do we go and fix it? Can we make a system that maneuvers it out of the way autonomously? Do you know how fast those things are? Well, then if it is coming in pretty fast, then we need to get to understand trajectory from farther away. The more further away we are, the more time we got. But then we're limited to the speed of light. Well, then we need atomics then, don't we? To be able to be told in the now moment when that registers over here. And if that's over near Jupiter, well, you know, you've got 5 hours, 6 hours, 10 hours, depending on how far back you go.
Yeah.
And it enters this, okay, we calculate that is going to land exactly here. By that time, you've got more time. You've got like 10 hours to move it out of the way or calculate the orbit.
Yeah.
And then when we do this, it's going to be challenging in the beginning, but then we feed all of this info into AI.
Yeah.
So we never need to sweat it ever again. It will just move it automatically. But then if you've got a craft that's coming towards it, it'll also need to tell this if this is going to unexpectedly move out of the way, which is good because we don't want to be hit by those micrometeorites either. So we're going to need to dock over here. In the beginning, it's a challenge. You only need to learn it once. You only need to learn to land on a planet once. After that, feed it into AI. And if it went right that time, it's guaranteed it's going to go right every time then, doesn't it? It almost seems to me like it's logically guaranteed. We want to be learning this now. And then what can nature deal with in terms of, is it called decompression?
Yeah.
How does nature deal with decompression? Is there any data on this yet? So if a micrometeorite were to hit a biome, several football pitches, and it gets into one and breaks one of the biomes, how does nature respond to that? How much time do you have to patch the hole, repressurize it? How does nature respond to this? Does it face it better than we do? Is it more detrimental? There's obviously got to be a time limit to this. And then how fast can you get those bots to patch the hole? As quick as that. Yeah, as often I think about things that could inflate over it, and this stuff be super like flubber. But when something hits it, it bounces off of it. Yeah, it seems far-fetched to even believe that right now, but again, just limitedly understanding, if something were to inflate, can we not make something bounce off of it? Like you throw a bouncy ball at the floor and it boom, bounces off. There's got to be some way where we move forwards with this, but we need more information, how things respond, what happens, blah, blah, blah. You know, we don't want the glass to all shatter. We want it to make a hole in it. Hopefully travel out the other side, and something as quick as that quickly patches it. Is there a mechanism that we can use that inflates over to grab any gases that start decompressing out of there? Secondly is, can we patch it as quick as that? Thirdly, can we put that gas back in that we just lost? All of this stuff is very important for us to know it, but we're going to need to start knowing it now. We actually needed to know it years ago, because the more time you've got, the more you can begin to align with it, right? You can then begin to start really getting things thought up, testing, challenge yourself. It's not something that we need to know at the last minute. We're going to need time with this. If there's one thing that humans need, is time. All it is, there's a problem, okay? Given enough time, you'll work it out. Might not be in this lifetime, but you get the ball rolling. In a future generation, there'll be someone that rises up, figures that out. And that, you can rest assured that they will. This is my curious thing with nature.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to be responding to us in a very negative way. It seems to be, unless it doesn't know that with us cutting it down, that we are not basically opening up our own chests, pulling out our heart and squeezing it.
Yeah.
Because once it's gone, it's gone. If we keep it as a seed, this is a good step in the right direction. But we need to continuously change out these seeds.
Yeah.
Why do we need to do that? Well, because it's evolved to the moment that you kept that seed. Now, has the change in the star composition changed? Has the composition of the planet altered? And even if it is very slightly, does that seed has got missing information compared to one that is now? This seed that has just happened now knows more about the climate now, but this one is like a little time capsule to when you collected the seed. And then it has an expiration date, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it not growing? Is it evolve? This is different climate to what it... So we need to log when you take the seed.
Mm-hmm.
See, I often wonder this about seeds, dud seeds that don't no longer grow. Yeah? And people be like, no, it's because it's dead. Or it's because of this. Is it? Or is it, if we were to take a snapshot of Earth's composition and all of the pressures in the planet and the gases and everything else, the sun's composition, the magnetic composition, and we were to take that then what we call a dead seed and put it into that snapshot of where it left off in, of when it was produced in this type of magnetic field, and perhaps nature was like, I predict that this seed is going to last for this long because the composition should go like this based on these calculations, but if it goes beyond there, that's as far as forward as I figured out. That's what I put into my child. That's the knowledge I gave to my child. And then we collect it, and then we make it go over the odds of that, and then we grow it, and it doesn't grow. Yeah, it must be a dud seed. Or is it because of the snapshot ratio? And if we were to take it and mimic of when we collected it, and we mimic that, again, it's a question that is being asked that we don't have any data to support whether that is a true thing or not. Could be wrong. Maybe the seed expires and that's it. Or is it because of the change? You know, it's like bringing a past human here now. Do they struggle with the differences? Is there any change in pressure in the environment? Is there changes to the light? Does their skin take it? Did the food change too much that it's now no longer incompatible? If we could teleport a human from a prehistoric time, let's say, and bring them here now, is that detrimental? Is that impossible to do based on the changes in the sun's composition? Its light, the differences in it. It's moved beyond, you know, it's aging, so it's changing. Everything is changing. The magnetism, it's changed since then. Is there that, does that make that incompatible for that being? And like vice versa, if you were to take a human and take them back to the past, is there certain, do they need like a spacesuit in a way? Because this is a different environment to what I've ever seen or felt, experienced on my body. And your body has had information transitioned through you. So your parents walked around now in the sunlight and everything else, and in the pressure and in the magnetism and in the compositions and pollutants in the water and different things like that. So you're hardy to it. And this information is then probably pushed on to your children. They grow up, same thing. But if we take someone from the past and bring them now, their evolution is back there. Their parents experienced a time of them, not now, and not this composition, and not this type of pollen, and not this strength of this, and not this, and this. So could that end up killing them? This is, I often ask this. This is a very deep down question that I have when people talk about, teleporting here and going back with a time machine. I sit there and think that it's a very good idea, but it's very complicated to even get that done. But secondly on that, is it possible? Not because of a technological lacking, but because of an environmental one, that things have changed since then. We would have to assume that all of the things that we're experiencing now, at this toxicity, nature's toxicity, is continuously increasing. The magnetism that's fluctuating, the star composition that is different, the pressure. I don't think that we're always got the same amount of pressure on the planet. I think it might have been really different then. Is it even feasible that we could do that? And could we even go back then? So, I don't know. So if we come away from Earth for a generation, then another generation, then another generation, and we stay in space or stay on Moon, and there's 4 generations passed on the Moon, and then they've been in a spacesuit that's been mimicking the environment when they left, and then they come back and we bring their children's back to the Earth. Do they find it impossible? Does it burn them? Does it give them hives? Does it create a disease? Does it, oh, this burns, it's hot, I can't do it. Because they were evolved in this. They got used to the suit.
Yeah.
Then we would have to then think that if I'm not making enough sense for you to understand, just let me know. I don't know if I'm explaining that correctly, that you get used to the sort of, so is it even possible? And then there's been changes in the light. I think the composition of the star has changed. So it's somewhat different type of radiation coming from the star. They were set up, and it's that type of particle that's in us all. That just because we're learning, and we think that it's all about physical learning, it's our body is learning, but a different type of learning to what you're learning. And you don't know this learning is going on, such as your evolution, such as the changes to your DNA. And therefore, your DNA could be responding to the differences in the star. And it damages the DNA, what we call damage. But it might not be damage. It might be like, I just broke this here. And then the body's like, how do I build a future generation from that? You're not aware of this going on, this mechanism. We are, but we're not fully aware of it. We just assume that that's a defect or radiation just damaged that there. Yeah, it probably did, but thankfully you are evolving. Even on the each generation has evolved slightly different to the last generation, and you've learnt all of this. Surely you have, because inside the womb you're not breathing anything, but your body's working on lungs. Or it seems to know that you're going to be put into an environment where there's air and you have a exchange of 2 gases. It seems to be aware of the pressure that you're going to be going into. It seems to know an awful lot. It seems to know that you're going to be experiencing sunlight. Also, how closer to the equator you are. Do we need more of this? Less of this? Do we need a bit more of this? Bit more that? Bit more this? Do we need to change this slightly? No, not in this area. But perhaps in this area we do. And there you are. Is the environment more drier? Well, yeah. Okay, then we're going to need a bit more sweat, maybe. Maybe we need to swallow a bit more regular. Maybe we need more eye juices the glands need to be pumping more eye juices. The stuff that we just don't realise. Because we're just born into it, right? So when you're born into it, do you really realise? But anyway, so mainly on this, if we were to build an underground farm, or anything else like that, how much oxygen could we actually pump out? How much of depression could we get rid of? You could go for a walk in that type of environment. And then there's the human-made, the humankind, literally putting the kind in the hum man. The human. What is it makes us kind? We care about nature. We see its value. We see its potential. We understand that although we could possibly live without nature, why would you? Why would you want to? How depressing is it when you live without nature? We look at the concrete in the cities and we see it and we think, to me, some of this stuff, towns and stuff, is very depressing. It's very cold. It's very lack of colour, lack of this flower production. And if it weren't for some florists...
That's why we have gardens, that's why we have florists, that's why we have lawns, parks.
Now imagine that in a ship, where you remove all of the element. Are humans really going to want to be here in that? No. Is that really what you want?
No. I don't think
the lack of that. And then there was an experiment done when NASA, I think it was NASA that perhaps suggested it, and some team went and built it. And they noticed that the carbon levels increased and the tribal instincts in the individuals came out. Is there more of an effect happening because you're away from a lot of plants in a city, a big built city? Are there more crimes in a city than there is in a country?
And depends on what kind of city, if it's green city or not.
This
Yeah.
is this is the
And
question.
parts, yeah.
You see where I'm going with that?
Yeah.
Is this based on this? Is there more depression in a city than there is in a country? Again, another question. Is there a consensus anywhere? Can we ask that the next time we do a consensus?
Mm.
Is it less in the country? Because we know it's less in the summer.
Mm.
We know that.
Yeah.
But what do people do in the summer?
Go out, yeah.
Go
travel, yeah.
They seek out nature. You see this in certain areas. They seek out these types of areas. And then in flats, is there more in flats? This type of depression type thing, anxiety.
Well, people, at least where I used to live, would have plants, quite a few. They would like more places with balconies because you can look out and you can have some plants there as well.
The city seems to not change. Maybe there's a change if there's snow across the ground, but other than that, there's not really much of an observational change. You don't see it. I miss it when I'm there. That's why I find them quite difficult places to be. For me personally, and I liked it when they did this whole practically county in bloom. It really added something. It was very memorable, but it seems to have fizzled out a little bit over time. It didn't expand as much as what it was. And some people just, kind of, there are crimes against nature. And some people went and pulled it all out and disrespected it.
Yeah, they did, didn't they?
And I think this then makes people sit there and think, why bother? And some of it was in some planters that just weren't right size for the type of plant that they put in there, and it got too dry.
Okay.
And with this drying effect, it caused everything in it to die.
Yeah.
So there needs to be a tray in the bottom, a tray that fills with water, but when it gets too high, it then overflows and goes off into a drain. But there is a volume of water in the bottom, so for when it does get a hot day, this will evaporate into the soil, keeping the soil moist. And it stops it evaporating any other way. It can't get out of that trough any other way. It has to go through the soil, and therefore the roots can bed down. If they need to, they will bed down. And would this cause root rot? Not really, because some roots will go into it and some will stick around the top area. Nature is very clever. It knows what it's doing. If it was all submerged in water and it made the soil completely boggy, yes, it will cause root rot, because the soil will begin to rot and you'll get fungus grow there, and then this gets into your plant. But if you've got a trough at the bottom where there is water, a reservoir, and when you put new water in, it fills into that and then overflows from the edges. It kind of keeps the water semi-fresh, stops it from smelling, basically, because you can trickle it in. And even in that, you'll need a design where the water that falls in goes in through a certain area and pushes out from the bottom, and then forces it to flow out of the sides of the trough. This keeps the replenishment going of the water. Interesting design. If I had my computer, I'd already drawn this up. Everything's in storage due to it being quite a damp environment. And no, it is not because of my plant. We've been around this for a very long time, and I got it dehumidified just to compensate for this. So, one particular one, hence why it's there in the beginning. So it grabs out whatever is there. But no, I think that's just an excuse that we use against plants. If these were leaking tons of moisture like you think they are, the dust on them wouldn't be so free to move.
Yeah.
It would become a moist layer across the top. Plants only really tend to sweat when they're in ridiculous places, such as too much light is hitting them too much. Of course, they draw and sweat. This one is not under direct sunlight. It's in a window, but I've put a piece of fabric over the window itself to filter out the light. It hits a white sheet, is what it hits. If this is in direct sunlight, expect all the leaves around the side of the plant. They do not like direct sunlight, especially in double glazed windows. So you just put a sheet up over the window, and the light, when it hits it, it illuminates it like a white light panel. It's very interesting. And then they love it. They grow more. They grow better when you do that, as opposed to just put them on your windowsill. So there's too light, and then there's not enough light.
Mm-hmm.
There's too hot, and then there's not enough heat. So they're definitely in a mix of a balance. Spectrum, I would say. They're not too extreme on one, and they're not too extreme on the other. They can live within the ratio, but direct sunlight, not good for this. So, and there you have it. If they were in direct sunlight, they would sweat until they drawed all the moisture from their pot. That would release it, but they don't cause damp. And I guess if you have a wet room or a hot house, I think that might cause it. But I think you'll find that by and large, I think that's a bit of a wives' tale. So, and only in survival, when you put a bag over a branch and tie it off and restrict the movement of airflow, because it would be like saying that humans inside houses, because they sweat, they're causing damp houses.
Yeah.
Right? Do you get what I mean? You're losing more moisture from you than your plant is. You literally are crying it from under your arms. And that's not just there. When I get on a sweat, especially at night, I sweat more. So, no. And then if that were the case, then, your furry pets sweat less. Dogs sweat even less than that, just on their tongue. So, you built the houses for dogs in mind then, and cats. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
So, houses can only cope with that type of a creature. And why did you build the house? So, no, it's just a poor excuse. And, I love it. It's one thing that landlords will always go to is, your plants, are you sure your plants aren't making it damp? Well, then I took all of my plants out of the property and went and entrusted them with somebody else, which is one of the it makes me panic or worry about that. And I do that for a course of the time. And then say, how long do you want to do this experiment for? Wait, what? How long would you like me to do this experiment for? Whoa.
Yeah.
And if it turns out that it's still damp, then you'll pay for everything that happened in the move of all of that. Oh, well, no. Well, if you're saying it's plant-based, a house that can't deal with moisture, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
So, I get a lot of people always default to this. This is sweating out the water. This is making your house in every room really wet, this is. It's a load of bollocks. Like, I've never lived in a house before, and I've never lived in a dry house.
Have they ever been in greenhouse?
What's that?
In greenhouse.
What, people ever been in a greenhouse?
Yeah, because you have to go to tropical greenhouse to really feel that there is any moisture.
Yeah, or you go to a florist. People common mistake a florist where flowers have to sit in tubs of water.
In water, but there are so many. It's not like a few. That's ridiculous.
No, damn, how much do you water your plants? They don't need a lot. They don't like to be overly watered.
Yeah. I remember really feeling like there's moisture only in tropical greenhouse, not in standard greenhouse where you go and in summer and maybe you pick some small plants, that you grow then that are in the small pots and then grow bigger. But I only remember that in tropical greenhouse because they heat the greenhouse because the plants come from somewhere from Amazonia and it's really hot there, so they have to do that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, and they have to really water them because they come from such a place, but otherwise you won't feel it even in greenhouse, which is full of plants and full of soil. I'm sorry. No.
It's a misnomer. I think an awful lot is blamed on... I think it's just, I want to get out of responsibility, and it's the blame game that usually happens with certain individuals. And if you didn't have plants, they would then blame something else. Like
wash machine, dishwasher.
It must be a cooker.
Yeah.
It must be this.
Yeah.
It must be, so you get an awful lot of...
People have those things in other houses and they don't have the problem, so it's not that.
Remove all of the tenant's stuff, and once the tenant's stuff is all out, then test it.
Yeah.
and then you find out that eventually you begin to learn, but no one will ever admit that to you.
No one.
Because there's no experiment there. So yeah, and I think that this gives nature such a bad reputation. And I think it's very damaging, especially when we talk about, we need to go green. There's a carbon problem. There's this, that, and it kind of is very strange that they would also be saying plants cause damp, plants do this, plants do that. And yeah, there's an awful lot of this come about. It's dangerous territory to be in when you continuously are blaming this, that, and the other. You can test this with a piece of celery and food coloring. Test it with celery sticks. When they're exposed to heat, direct light, or a magnifying glass on them from a distance, not to the point where you want to burn it, but you want to concentrate the photon level. And yeah, they begin to evaporate faster. It's basically the leaf just is trying to stop itself from burning, so it sweats, much like it keeps it cool. The same way, if you go for a run, you know, you start to sweat. Why do you think that is? It's trying to stop you from overheating. But there you are. And sometimes you can get sweat on in the winter, but you get more of a sweat on in the summer. Although you don't see it as much because perhaps the arid environment evaporates it off you quicker, which then probably keeps you cool and therefore keeps you running. So it's an interesting thing. I've often had this one thrown, but I will not accept that you could have one plant and it was responsible for every single room in the house and it's responsible for underfloors. Do you get what I mean? And you know, you've got a leak coming through a ceiling dripping down. It's got to be your plants. Drip, 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 drip.
I come from a city. The place where I come from, the estate, is made from panels. Those flats are always dry. You can have, I don't know how many plants there. You can have wash machine there. You can have dishwasher there. You can even dry your clothes inside and it still will be dry. It's the way the building is built.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I think we're slowly moving into an understanding of this with... the problem is, to admit it is to throw money at it. And money affects profit. That's what I think that boils down to in that aspect. So, and then people are just like so fearful. You know, someone like, how come you don't have any plants? Oh, because, you know, they make your house damp.
Yeah.
Okie dokie.
Yeah.
So you've got a damp house then? Yeah, I got a damp house, but, you know, I don't want to, it would be plants and this, that, and the other.
Have a cactus then.
Yeah.
Oh, this makes your house damp.
Yeah.
Cactus. It grows in sand. It's very dry. And they will come and say it, won't they?
And then you'd have to prove it when you were living in a past property and now you had 2 dehumidifiers running and they very much struggle to even fill over a week. That's with the plant. And you've got that type of data. It's kind of science. It's not kind of, it is science arguing in the narrative, but they don't know that, you know, that can be produced and put in front of them. So, and I think that's very strange territory that we start to move into, to be honest. I think that gives nature such a bad reputation when really I think we're doing enough to harm ourselves. It proves it with the current climate that we're living in now.
Yeah.
That we have moved away from this sort of thing. These type of individuals probably walk, if they ever found the Garden of Eden, would probably dismantle it because of how damp it might be, you know.
Yeah,
it's causing mold. Can't have this. Yeah, look, it's damp in the floor. Oh, come on, let's dismantle the Garden of Eden. Come on. Says the ones that live on a damp planet.
Yeah.
Surrounded by how much water again? Yeah, but it must be one plant in a building, right? That's got to be causing it, you know. So no, it's very strange to me, but interesting. I'm sure there must be some truth in it somewhere. If you leave it long enough, it must be that. So no. So I think we'll find this when making a sort of underground forests and different things like that. These far benefit what we need, and I think that we'll see that there's not so much in the terms of dampness.
Mhm.
So, gee me, how did NASA manage to build the International Space Station and grow pieces of corn in there? God, it must have been such a damp place, that. I bet it wasn't.
No.
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 Not when you do it correctly. So yeah, there we are. So I feel like I have to say that because, you know, these videos are going to be seen. So, and usually everything can and will be used against you.
Yeah.
And it's not in a court of law.
Mm.
It's in the court of public opinion.
Yeah.
So there we are. And there we are.
Mm.
So yeah, I'm going to leave this one here. I think I touched what I needed to. So that was a very nice video.